Welcome to Boardswell's Coffee Chat. We are honored to greet our participants today and happy that we're sharing what we are talking about within our community. We're sharing with a larger audience. From time to time, we do this. I'm Sabrina Hannam, the CEO of Boardswell. We are the match app for boards. And today I'm joined by Dai, who is going to guide us on AI and what's happening with AI, what executives and board members should be thinking about. Lake, would you please thank you for coming and let us understand a little bit about who you are, please.
Well, thank you, Sabrina, and really appreciate the opportunity. So I am Lake Dai. I'm a founder and managing partner of Sencus Ventures, which is a VC firm early stage and that focus on seed and pre-seed investment in software infrastructure, particularly for AI infrastructure and blockchain infrastructure. So which means that we try to address the issues that coming related to cloud, related to data, and then related to data privacy, cybersecurity, and scalability. I'm also an adjunct professor at Carnegie Mellon University. I've been teaching applied AI in the last 7 years. And prior to that, I have 20 years of experience running product and engineering organizations in different tech startups and large companies like Alibaba, Apple, and Yahoo. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Lake. And we are going to, as a proprietary technology enabled, tech-enabled marketplace, we are fascinated about all the technology that's in our ecosystem today. Most recently, what are chat GPT's use cases and impact on business?
Yeah, so I know. So recently, I get a lot of calls. It's hard to have a conversation without talking about ChatGPT, right? Because everyone's using it for different purpose. I know people have been using for writing their resumes, and I know some students might be using it for homework, and I know people using for phone. And so there are many different use cases we're seeing so far. Let's talk about business use cases, right? So one of the most apparent one is that the copywriting. So in the past, when we write blog or marketing material or product descriptions, it's actually, we spend a lot of time in it. Not only we may hire a professional writer, but also there are multiple iterations. But now in putting small, simple examples and some of the data, then ChatGPT can spit out an article very quickly. So that's a very I would say, very apparent applications we can see right away. We have seen that there are healthcare practitioners asking for what are the treatments for specific, to try to diagnose specific disease. And I also have seen that researchers that try to generalize the insight from a lot of publications. So that's just ChatGPT, we call it large language model that are able to generate so much insight. And we also seeing use cases pretty interesting. I saw like one of the most I would say funny one is that teaching people how to talk to the opposite sex, for example, for conversation, right? So some people are like, they're introvert, they don't know how to start a conversation, and this ChatGPT used as a hint that, well, maybe you should talk about this and this and this, and there might be common interest that you both would be interested. So there's a variety of applications in both consumer and enterprise space. But what's really, really interesting to me is that I've recently seen a lot of fusion of ChatGPT API with other APIs and other databases. So one example I saw last week was the integration of ChatGPT and with enterprise database. So you can ask a single question, said, well, tell me what is the sales revenue last year, in the last 3 years, and generate a chart for me and predict what potential sales revenue for next year. Right, that already can be done. So you can imagine this is a replacement of junior data analyst at some level. I've also seen fusion of, for example, Stable Diffusion and also ChatGPT API integration and voice to text integration. So for example, you can just say a few words and then based on your words and generate different images which can be used for slides. So as you can imagine, this is just the very beginning of the exploration of some use cases, but I'm really looking forward to see more.
Let's look at the lens of a board director in a portfolio company of a VC.
Yeah. So, well, let's say if you're board director, right? So let's say if you are a board director that, we spend so much, time talk about excitement of opportunities, but there's the other side, which is during data collection and implementation of those APIs. What is our data privacy policy there, right? When we integrate multiple APIs, are we introducing more cybersecurity risk? How do we look into those issues to prevent that from happening? And then the third dimension is that I actually just start hearing more and more of those concerns is that, well, now in the organization, we use the ChatGPT now. Does that mean some of the jobs will no longer be needed? Is there a change of the workforce, right? So how do we deal with that? And then the last one, similar to this, is that how is that going to change our vertical in general? What other social impact could happen? So that's from the lens of a board governance. And if I switch the role to the investor role, and then I think a lot of investors right now are looking at the opportunities, right? And then the other question you would also ask, for me as an infrastructure investor is that, okay, so if everyone is building up the applications, that will put a lot of pressure on the infrastructure, right? So does the current infrastructure able to support the explosive amount of data collection, explosive amount of, model training and inference at the performance requirement needed, right? Does it mean that we need to change our infrastructure? What opportunities are there? So that's from the VC perspective. And what's the other one that you mentioned?
Just in terms of the LPs, the portfolio companies, and the portfolio company's board of directors, it sounds like infrastructure is a huge part of what people should be thinking about, no matter what. The board of directors should be thinking about the strategy. They should be thinking about the risks. They should be thinking about the opportunities. Now, is there anything else that you wish people knew as we are getting into this era? And we've had so many different technology within it's happening at the speed of light, right? So we have so much technology. What do you wish people knew about this? Is this something that's all hype, or do you think that it's something that we should be focusing on as board directors and thinking about building out the board skill set to have technology experts, to have cybersecurity experts that work with AI, to experts to have tabletop exercises? What should we be thinking about going forward?
Yeah, this is a great question. I mean, we spot the opportunity, and there's another part that I think is a little bit scary from that perspective, is how fast this technology is evolving and how many jobs will be irrelevant, right? So I used to have a writer that basically review some of the blogs that we posted, and then we don't need that anymore. You just have, submit all the copies into ChatGPT, and then that will be replaced. And just think about how fast, and as we see all those innovations happening in the use cases, you can see how many junior jobs will be replaced, or sometimes even media tier jobs would be irrelevant. So that poses the question is, okay, so if that's the case, then what does it mean? Like, what's our job, right? It's our jobs to learn better to co-pilot with AI. It's our jobs to be, think about how we can help those people who lost their jobs to get more education, to learn how to coexist and continue to bring value. And then there's also a question of, my students asked a really interesting question. They said, well, professor, so if you view AI as a race, right? So it's as a separate group, and that they are smarter, they're, have a better memory, they can compute faster, but then work 24/7, is that enslaving the AI? And then we'll have another student like, no, our human are enslaved, right? Because we are annotating data to train them to be smarter, and then we will be replaced. So those sounds like sci-fi subject maybe 5 years ago. It could be relevant right now, right? Because, and we also ask the question, I'm also an educator, so ask the question is that, what should we teach at universities now? What should we teach at K-12? Are we teaching knowledge? Are we teaching creativity, right? Because knowledge now, you have very quick tools to get all the information you want. And should we be teaching the skills, how to co-pilot with AI? So there's a lot of questions that are surfacing, very interesting. It's not only on the technology, it's not only on the investment, it's not only on the board governance, but also on, social impact, right? So there are so many things we should think about right now.
Sure. And as we wrap up, you make a very good point to partnering with educators, and of which I am one. So I love the topic in terms of figuring out what are the human rights issues, what are the health, education, and all the aspects of the ecosystem that will be affected. Want to thank you for joining us today and for this coffee chat, and we will look forward to see what's next in Chat GPT.
All right. Thank you so much, Sabrina.
You're welcome.